to their homes, offices and other locations of their choice from February 2024. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the International Week of the University of Lagos titled Breaking the Borders of Partnership, Tunji Ojo said January next year, Nigerians would be able to complete the application process online. The minister lamented duplication of registration of identity, country numbers, including the BVN in the bank, international passport, NIN and SIM card registration by telcos. Tunji Ojo revealed that President Tinubu had even given the directive for the harmonization of the various identity numbers in the country. He added that the integrity of travel documents would be restored through the harmonization of data. Meanwhile, the Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy, has expressed disapproval of the actions of an Abuja hospital that shut out a dying victim after a violent attack on a one-chance bus, saying she will ensure such an incident does not reoccur. Speaking in a live broadcast, the minister promised to pay the hospital a visit to fight for the late greatness Olurunfemi. She expressed her concerns about the incident and vowed to investigate it further. Reports say Olurunfemi, a young lady, was stabbed after boarding the bus posing as a commercial vehicle along the Maitama-Kubwa highway before being thrown out into the street. She was rushed to the Maitama General Hospital, but the facility did not attend to her for lack of a police report. In the meantime, the Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, has faulted the European Union (EU) over its report on the 2023 Nigerian presidential election. The minister gave the criticism when he hosted the EU ambassador to Nigeria, Samuela Isopi, in Abuja. He said the report was not only skewed, but failed to give the true position of the last election held in the country. Wike also accused the EU of creating a wrong impression in the minds of the electorate, especially in Rivers State, adding that the European Union was supposed to serve as an observer during the last election and not to present reports that would not give the true picture of the Nigerian democracy. Moving on to electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission has expressed concern over the rising insecurity ahead of the November 11 governorship elections in Imo, Bayelsa and Kogi states. The Commission, in a statement by its National Commissioner and Chairman of its Information and Voter Education Committee, Sam Olumekun, also lamented that despite notices and subsequent reminders, political parties had yet to substantially submit the list of their agents. The INEC Commissioner, while appealing to political parties and their candidates to avoid actions and utterances capable of heating up the polity, said the Commission is concerned about the spate of insecurity and violence, including clashes among supporters of political parties and candidates in the forthcoming elections. On judicial matters, the Lagos State High Court sitting at the Tafawa Balewa Square Annex Igbosere, Lagos Island, has convicted and sentenced to death by hanging a suspended Assistant Superintendent of Police, ASP Drambi Vandi, for the murder of Lagos-based lawyer Omobolanle Rahim. Justice Ibironke Harrison held at the prosecution that the Lagos State government has proven the case against the convict beyond all reasonable doubt. Recall that on January 16, the Lagos State government arraigned Vandi before the court for shooting to death the 41-year-old pregnant lawyer at the Ajah Underbridge checkpoint on December 25, 2022. The convict faced a one-count charge of murder contrary to Section 223 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State 2015. In another development, the Nigeria Ports Authority (NPA) has vowed to eliminate corruption in the nation's seaports through implementation of the Nigeria Ports Process Manual (NPPM). Speaking at the seminar on implementation of the NPPM in Port Harcourt, organized by the Ports Standing Task Force team, the Managing Director of the Nigeria Ports Authority (NPA), Mohammed Bello Koko, stated that the authority is doing everything possible to ensure that corruption is eliminated in port operations. Coco, who was represented by a principal manager of NPA Port Harcourt, Norom Emmanuel, noted that ills carried out by other bodies operating within the port were easily attributed to have been done by the authority. He said the essence of the NPPM was to ensure effective interagencies collaboration, adding that the NPPM would also address the issues of delay in documentations and clearances. Away from that, the group managing director, I beg your pardon, of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, has projected that Nigeria will become a net exporter of petroleum products by next year. Speaking at the Pengassin Energy and Labour Summit 2023 in Abuja, Kyari said, as a resource-dependent country, Nigeria should not be exporting 100% of its crude as it does at present. According to him, Nigerians will have sufficient volumes in the country and those that can leave the country. The NNPC boss, however, made it clear that refining crude oil in the country will not necessarily bring down the local price of petrol, which he said was controlled by the international price. Reports say during an inspection tour of the rehabilitation work progress at the Port Harcourt Refining Company PHRC Limited plant in Port Harcourt, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Senator Henikan Lokwobiri, said the Port Harcourt refinery will be back on stream by December, adding that the Dangote refinery is also expected to start production soon, which will see more crude refined in the country. On security, police in Anambra State have paraded 8 persons arrested in connection with the vandalization of the newly constructed Second Niger Bridge. The State Police Command also recovered iron grills and drainage covers removed from the bridge by the vandals. The Anambra State Police Commissioner Aderemi Adeoye stated this during a press briefing in which he paraded about 129 suspects apprehended for varying crimes. Others paraded alongside the vandals are suspected members of various cult groups terrorizing the state capital, Oka. Suspected members of the separatist group, indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, who kidnapped victims, and armed robbery suspects, amongst others. In another development, the Nigerian Union of Teachers NUT Federal Capital Territory Wing has suspended its ongoing strike for 6 weeks following the intervention of the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. The chairman of the union, Stephen Kabai, confirmed the suspension in an interview with newsmen in Abuja today. Kabai said the strike was suspended from October 2nd to November 13 to implement commitments by the chairman of the 6 area councils and the FCT minister. Recall that the NUT and FCT on September 11 embarked on an indefinite strike over unpaid 40% peculiar and other outstanding allowances. Other concerns of the teachers included non-payment of 25 months arrears of the 2019 approved national minimum wage, non-release of some promotion letters to beneficiaries, and non-implementation of released promotion letters. In a separate development, the Standards Organization of Nigeria, SON, has said that it had destroyed expired and substandard goods worth 7 million naira in Bauchi State. The SON's Zonal Director, Northeast Zone, Adamuaba, said destroying the expired and substandard goods was to ensure that only quality goods were sold to citizens. He noted that the exercise was in collaboration with the Bauchi State Environmental Protection Agency to ensure that all the food and non-food items seized were destroyed in the most environmentally friendly way. The zonal director reiterated that the fight against substandard products was a collective responsibility of all. Still to come in the news. Oil surges in energy market to above $86 and $87 per barrel over Israel's conflict. Do stay with us for details of these and more after this time out.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people. But there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Thanks for staying tuned. And now to the rest of the news stories. In Africa, Kenya's police have begun selection of officers ahead of the planned deployment to Haiti, which still needs parliamentary approval. A document from the head of the police force requests with urgency a list of names from the General Service Unit, the paramilitary wing of the police force. It also details the requirements needed by the prospective officers to include minimum of 5 years service, aged between 20 and 55 years old, proficiency in English and ability to handle firearms safely. Recall that Kenya had offered to lead a multinational police force to the Caribbean nation to quell mounting gang violence. The country pledged 1,000 of its officers to help restore order. Elsewhere, South Africa's Constitutional Court has ruled that convicted killer Oscar Pistorius has served more than half his sentence for the 2013 murder of girlfriend Weaver's teen camp, saying he is technically eligible for parole. Recall that Pistorius was sentenced to 6 years in 2016, but that sentence was increased to 13 years and 5 months in 2017. Reports say a parole hearing was arranged for last March, but it collapsed after the Correctional Services Department DCS said he had not served half his sentence as required for parole. However, the Constitutional Court overturned the decision. In the meantime, the Democratic Republic of Congo's leader, Felix Tshisekedi, has submitted his candidacy for a second term in office, joining a crowded list of presidential hopefuls, including opposition heavyweights and a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Reports say the country is due to hold parliamentary and presidential votes on December 20. Meanwhile, Tshisekedi, who came to power after an election in 2018, officially submitted his candidacy for a second 5-year term in office in the capital, Kinshasa. Away from that, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) and the World Bank are reportedly gathering in Marrakesh, Morocco this week for their annual meeting, 50 years since their last gathering on the continent. Reports say the two institutions traditionally hold their week-long meeting away from their Washington headquarters every 2 or 3 years. Meanwhile, after 2 postponements due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the threat of a third delay due to last month's earthquake in Morocco, the meeting finally kicked off today. Still in Africa, Cameroon Interior Minister Paul Nji says death toll from landslide in the country's capital, Yaoundé, has risen to 30, with 17 others injured. Nji said several homes in Bakolo were reduced to rubble following heavy rains, noting that there are fears several people are still trapped under the ruins. Meanwhile, authorities have asked inhabitants to vacate the neighborhood, which is considered a risk zone for fear of another landslide. Moving on to the foreign scene, the European Union has halted development aid payments to the Palestinians and is placing 691 million euros of support under review after the Hamas assault on Israel. European Union Commissioner for Neighborhood and Enlargement Oliver Vellier said all payments, projects and budget proposals for 2023 has been postponed until further notice. He added that the scale of terror and brutality against Israel and its people is a turning point. Vellier noted that foundations for peace, tolerance and coexistence must now be addressed. Meanwhile, Arab Regional Bloc has announced that League foreign ministers will meet on Wednesday to discuss Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip following a surprise assault by Hamas on Israel. In a statement, Arab League Deputy Chief Hossam Zaki said the meeting in Egypt's capital, Cairo, will seek to find avenues of political action at the Arab and international level. The statement added that intensive consultations are underway for the meeting to be held this week at the headquarters of the Arab League. In the meantime, Israel's ambassador to Nigeria, Michael Freeman, has accused Iran of being the mastermind behind Hamas' attack on Israel amid renewed conflicts between Israel and Palestine. In a live broadcast, Freeman claimed that Iran was funding the conflict in order to destabilize the region surrounding Israel. Discussing the situation between the two Middle Eastern nations, the ambassador said Israel does not desire war in any circumstances, but it is committed to protecting its citizens in all possible ways. He claimed there was no real reason for the conflict, but blamed Hamas, whose ideology, according to him, is to kill Israelis. In a related development, countries around the world have condemned a wave of Palestinian attacks by land, sea and air that Israel's army says left more than 200 dead. Some countries also call for a de-escalation of the conflict after Israel launched airstrikes and other military operations targeting Gaza that Palestinian authorities say killed more than 230 people. Recall that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the nation is at war when he vowed severe retaliation after Hamas's surprise assault. In the meantime, Israel's military says troops are in full control of all communities along the border with Gaza. A military spokesman said fighting between troops and Palestinian militants in several areas had become isolated, warning that militants might still be at large. Reports say at least 700 people in Israel have been killed and almost 500 people have also been killed in Gaza in retaliatory Israeli strikes. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister said he had ordered a complete siege of Gaza, cutting off its supplies of power, fuel, and food. Still on the foreign scene, Romania and Hungary has evacuated 460 of their citizens out of Israel in the wake of an ongoing multi-front attack by Gaza militants. According to the Romanian ministry, a total of 245 persons were flown out of Israel to Romania. 4 planes flew to Israel, 2 of them from the state-owned airline Tarom and 2 others from private airlines. They added that 2 groups of pilgrims were among the evacuees. Meanwhile, Hungary's Foreign Minister Peter Zisreto said the Hungarian Air Force planes landed at Budapest airport and 215 Hungarian citizens were airlifted out of Tel Aviv on 2 military planes following the large-scale attack by Hamas militants on Israel. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. Here is Davina Praise.
Thank you, Uyai Anekan. Good evening. It is a new business week. My name is Davina Praise Omang. In the news, oil surges on Israel's conflict. WTI and Brent crude futures jumped about 4% to above $86 and $87 per barrel, respectively, today, recouping some losses from last week after a surprise attack by Hamas on Israel over the weekend raised geopolitical risk in the Middle East. To Israel's currency, the Israeli shekel was down more than 1% to 3.9 per US dollar today, a fresh low since 2016, as the outbreak of the worst Israeli-Palestinian conflict in many years enters a 3rd day. The Hamas attacked Israel, and Israel began its retaliatory strikes during the weekend, with Prime Minister Netanyahu pledging to continue the fight with neither limitations nor respite until the objectives are achieved. The shekel depreciation prompted the Bank of Israel to sell up to $30 billion of foreign currency in the open market, the first intervention in about 2 years and the first ever sale of foreign exchange, aiming to prevent the shekel from falling further and provide the necessary liquidity to the market. The shekel fell about 2% at the open. Prior to Hamas' attack, the shekel was already under pressure as Prime Minister Netanyahu was set to follow through with measures that weakened the country's judiciary system despite a series of protests earlier in the year. Over to the next story, steel rubber futures fell to 3,620 Chinese yuan per ton in October, the lowest since August, as markets continue to assess resources demand in China amid uncertain outlook following the Golden Week holidays. Concerns of liquidation for Evergrande and Country Garden efforts to restructure debt for a second time stoked fears for China's debt-ridden constructors. Financial concerns already drove key developers to halt construction in a series of uncompleted and yet-to-start projects, hampering steel buying from one of its primary sources. Also, reports show that lower profits for Chinese mills drove them to increase buying from cheaper Indian iron ore, significantly reducing input prices. In Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria said it suspended the N-Power program because the scheme had ghost beneficiaries, while some of its consultants were withholding participants' funds. Over 1 million Nigerians had lost their jobs under the N-Power program following the indefinite suspension of the scheme by the government, as announced by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu. The Empower program was established by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari to address youth unemployment, as beneficiaries were paid 30,000 naira monthly stipend. The National Program Manager, Empower, Akindele Egbuwalo, affirmed that the scheme had ghost workers that should be eliminated. Nigerian stock market report. It is a new trading week and the benchmark all-share index moved up 647 basis points, a 0.97% increase to close at 67,101.57 points. A total of 268.66 million shares and 6,911 deals, corresponding to a market value of 3.463 billion naira, were traded. The current market capitalization of the stock exchange stands at 36.9 trillion naira. 116 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 26 gainers and 23 losers. BUA Cement led the gainers with 10% share price appreciation, closing at 103 naira 40 kobo per share. On the losing side, Prestige Insurance Company came out last with an end-of-day price appreciation of 10% of 45 kobo per share. Associated Bus Company, ABC, recorded the highest volume of 29.3 million traded shares. Now this is all in business news, and back to Uyai Aniekan for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Davina Praise. Still to come in the news. UEFA postpones all marches in Israel after war declaration. Stay tuned for details of these and more after this time out. Thanks for staying tuned. In health, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency (NPHCDA) has said that 117 children have died following the diphtheria outbreak in Yobe since 2022. NPHCDA noted that 1,600 children had recovered from the disease within the period under review. The executive director of the agency, Faisal Schweib, disclosed this during an inspection visit at the diphtheria isolation center in Potiskum, the epicenter of the disease in the state. Schweib said 1,796 cases of the disease had been reported in Yobe since November 2022, disclosing that the disease was more prevalent among children aged 5 to 14 years. He added that no vaccination was responsible for the recent outbreak of the disease across the country. Still in health, as the world marks World Mental Health Day, a mental health expert and the founder of the Mental Health DT Foundation, Dr. Adedotun Esan, has appealed to the federal government to decriminalize suicide and attempted suicide in Nigeria. She urged that anyone who tries to kill himself needs help, not punishment, and should not be put behind bars, and called for the integration of mental health services into the nation's primary health care. Esan further said, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, more than 700,000 people take their own lives every year, and criminalizing suicide only serves to exacerbate people's distress, while decriminalization of suicide and suicide attempts was a critical step that governments can take in their efforts to prevent suicide. In a related development, the International Community of Red Cross (ICRC) has provided 10,000 mental health and psychosocial support services to 10,000 traumatized victims in Borno within 8 years. ICRC Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Field Officer Comfort Dauda made this known in Maiduguri. She said that ICRC has been providing mental and psychosocial support to people affected by violence and armed conflict in the state, noting that they are in one of the communities to celebrate World Mental Health Day with some of their service users. She explained that ICRC has also provided basic psychosocial support, psychological first aid, psychoeducation, awareness raising, community-based activities, counseling, group therapy, psychiatric, psychological assessment, and treatment to the beneficiaries. The official listed beneficiaries of the services to include IDPs, missing persons, hospital patients suffering weapon wounds, frontline healthcare workers, and people in detention who were treated in various health facilities. Over now to Isaac for trending sports stories.
Well, thank you so much. In sports, UEFA has decided to postpone all matches scheduled in Israel over the next 2 weeks, with new dates to be confirmed later, the governing body said yesterday. Israel declared war on Sunday following an attack by Hamas militants that killed hundreds. The European qualifier between Israel and Switzerland on October 10 is among the matches that have been postponed. UEFA said it was waiting a few days to assess whether the European Championship qualifier between Kosovo and Israel can be played on the scheduled date of October 15 or would need to be postponed. UEFA added that it will continue to closely monitor the situation and will remain in contact with all teams involved before making decisions on new dates and on potential changes to other upcoming fixtures. Well, moving on, Saudi Arabia announced it took the second step to bid for the 2024 World Cup by submitting a letter of intent to host the event to World Football Governing Body FIFA on Monday. SAFF said that once they declared their intention on Wednesday to bid for the tournament, over 70 FIFA member associations from across different continents have publicly pledged their support for the kingdom. Last week, FIFA named Morocco, Spain and Portugal as hosts of the 2030 World Cup, with Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay hosting the opening matches to embark the tournament centenary. Finally, from the football scene, Sevilla have sacked their coach Jose Luis Mendilibar after winning just 2 of the opening 8 La Liga games this season. Saturday's 2-2 league draw at Rayo Vallecano left Sevilla in 14th position in the standings with 8 points taken off a possible 24. Mendilibar, who's 62, took the helm of affairs in Sevilla in March and guided the club to defend their La Liga status and win the Europa League for a record-extending 7th time. Sevilla would host La Liga leaders Real Madrid on October 21 before welcoming Arsenal to the Roman Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium in Champions League 3 days later. Under Mendilibar, the team drew the opening 2 Champions League games against PSV and Lens. They sit third in the standings, 2 points adrift of group leaders Lens and 1 point adrift of Arsenal. But that's it on sports. My name is Isaac. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac. Now to our entertainment news. The Lyric Theatre in Belfast has won 2 major prizes at the UK Theatre Awards. The ceremony, which was held in London, saw the theatre win Best Play Revival for The Beauty Queen of Lenain with Belfast-based Prime Court Productions. The play from Oscar-winning filmmaker Martin McDonagh first premiered in Galway in 1996. The Lyric Theatre co-led the ceremony's nominations and were also nominated for Best Design, Best New Play and Best Show for Children and Young People. Meanwhile, Big Brother Niger All-Stars winner Ilebaye Odinia, popularly known as Ilebaye, has said she would give 12 million naira to her church as tithe from the 120 million naira prize money she won from the reality show. Recall that Ilebaye, a 22-year-old Kogi-born model, beat 5 other finalists to emerge winner of the BB Niger All-Stars season on October 1st. She was presented with a check for 120 million and a brand new car at the prize presentation ceremony. Ilebaye, however, said she would give part of the money to her church to express gratitude to God for her victory. Still on entertainment, Michael Sciarello, a celebrity chef who hosted his own Food Network show, has died after suffering an allergic reaction. His company, Grupo Sciarello, announced in a statement that the former Food Network star passed away at age 61 at a hospital in Nepal, Kyiv, after being treated there for the past week for an acute allergic reaction that had led to anaphylactic shock. The group added that he spent his final moments surrounded by family and friends. The statement further read that they deeply mourn the loss of the beloved patriarch Michael. His culinary brilliance, boundless creativity, and unwavering commitment to family were at the core of his being. He brought people together through the joy of shared meals, fostering lasting memories around the table and pouring love into each meal. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do well to follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. This has been Spectrum Television News at 9. I am Uyai Aniakan. Thanks for watching, and I do hope that you have a splendid night rest. Good night, Nigeria.